Well, welcome to part 2 of The Glorious Wolf. Thanks for coming back. I had a good time on Monday, and we're going to have a good time today. Now, I've got a few questions that have come in that I want to answer first before we start working. And we'll do it the same that we did on Monday. If you have questions, if you'll type them in, then I will answer them on Friday. I really enjoyed this. I hope you have too. So the first question I have is, why do I use 305 blue under the black? The reason I do that is that black is pretty dead unless we mix something else with it. And what I'm going to mix with that is 305 blue. So I put that underneath, and that kind of helps the black be more vibrant. You could put a dark purple. I like to do a lot of black backgrounds on my animals, and when I do that, I'll put bright blue or purple or something underneath the black to kind of help it vibrate. Your eye, it makes it more exciting without it being really obvious. Now, the second question I got was, why do I use a charcoal pencil instead of charcoal? That is a personal preference. Now, I don't like Vine charcoal because it's messy. This charcoal pencil, they're made by General, and they're my favorite charcoal pencils. There are others. This is a 6B. They come in different degrees of softness and hardness. And sometimes I might use a 4 instead of a 6, but the 6 is a pretty good general color to have on hand, which you can use for lots of things. General is also the ones that make the white pastel pencil, or white charcoal pencil rather, which I find to be a better choice than a white pastel pencil. And to me, white charcoal is an oxymoron, but that's what they call it. Now, the next question I got was, do I use a table or do I paint flat? I do use a table. My table is probably at a 30-degree angle, and my chair is high so that I sit up over my work so that I can see what I'm doing. When I travel, I use a little elevated drawing board that I carry that I can adjust the different heights so that I can see my work. If it's totally flat, I can't see the proportions exactly, and I'm more likely to draw it wrong. To get my, it won't be accurate. So I do use a table. In fact, I've had a table my entire life. My dad bought me my first drafting table when I was 12 years old. The next question I got was mounting velour paper. And also, along with that, where do I get it? So I have a piece of velour paper. You can see it's kind of floppy. It's stiff, but not super stiff. In the beginning, I just painted on this, and that was fine. But I learned from Leslie Harrison that if I mount it, it'd be more stable. So I take mine to a framer and have her dry mount it. But you can do it yourself at home. And to do that, I use Crescent Perfect Mount mounting board in the single thickness. And this paper peels off, and you can stick your velour paper on top of that. And I actually have a video on how to do that on my YouTube channel. And it says on the paper that if it's not on there right, you can pick it up and take it off, but you can't. That's not true. So be careful. Be sure you get it exactly like you want it, and then I use a rubber brayer to go over it and make sure it's on there nice and flat and get any kind of bubbles out. The paper I use comes from High Gloss Products in New York. Currently they are closed because all unnecessary, or is that what they call them? Unnecessary businesses are closed. You can also get it on Amazon. It's called Velour Poster Board, or you can use Hannah Mule velour paper, which you can get from Dick Blick. The next question I have is, how do I know what the number is on my pastel if it's broken? New pastels have a little number engraved on every stick and on the wrapper that comes on the stick. So if you break it, you still have that part. Well, if you lose that part, then I guess you kind of be in trouble. So with every new pastel set that I buy, I make a color chart. So I put the number and the name of the color. And then if I only have, for instance, a little teeny piece like this left, I can go back and mark it on my color chart until I find out what it is. So that is a good thing to do when you get a new set of pastels. And maybe y'all are going to get new sets of pastels while you're at home to kind of experiment and work with. And I have charts that I made when I started doing this, working with pastel. They're very old, but they come in handy when I'm trying to match a color. Now, someone also asked about my camera blower. This is my camera blower. You can use this to blow off little boo-boos on your paper. And if things get really bad, let me show you what I use. I have a microfiber cloth, and the microfiber cloth will lift the nap of the velour, and it will take pastel off if you get too much on there, and sometimes that happens. Now, the last question I have before we get started is, what do I put underneath my hand while I'm working, and does velour paper smear? I use a piece of glassine or a piece of black paper to put underneath my hand. And velour doesn't really smear like other pastel papers do, but I really don't want to drag my hand through my painting, and your hand has a certain amount of oils on it, and I don't want to get those on my painting either. So that's why I use that to rest my hand on. If you're right-handed, I'm right-handed, so I work from the left-hand top corner down to the bottom, if possible. Work on the left side of my painting first, and then work over to the right side. That's not always possible, but that is a good rule of thumb. Some artists in pastel work over the entire painting at the same time. That doesn't always work for me. So as an artist and an individual, you'll find what works best for you and do that. But that's what I do. So now I'm going to turn my camera around and we'll get started on finishing up. Well, we're not going to finish, but we're going to move further into doing the fur on our wolf. So hang on. Let me see how to turn the camera around. And put it up. There we go. So we got all our underlayers done the last time we were together. He's looking really spiffy. So we have it nice and dark. If we don't have the darks, it won't show up the lights, right? So today, we're going to use our new pastels. And I'm going to use 299 and 211 to start putting in the fur. I'm going to start with 299. And I'm probably also going to use some black. And let's see. I'm going to start around his eye. He has kind of a little eyebrow. I'm using the pastel on its edge. make that a little brighter with the white. I can use my white charcoal pencil to add little hairs right here around the eye and put in his little eyelashes and to draw hairs up from his eye. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to use my charcoal pencil to add the black hairs. Now up at the, skip around a little bit, let me get my piece of paper out. I want to get the border right up here where the white hairs of his forehead join to his ears. And they're short, so I'm just going to put in some short. You can paint most any animal like this. Your dog, your cat, use the same method. Switch to the 276. Put some cream colored hair right here on the outside edge. And I'm going to take my black and I'm drawing little, just zigzagging my pastel in between. And they're short, these are short little hairs on his forehead. So I can go back and forth and put in these short little hairs. Now we have to be really very careful of the direction that the hair grows in. And I can put in some more with the 299 gray, and I'm just barely touching my paper. Back to my black. And then I can add a few white hairs as well. Just kind of one at a time. And you want to, you don't want them all lined up in a row, like little soldiers. So we want them to be separate, not like the others. And I'm going to show you how you can, if you don't like it, if it's too much, how you can fix that too. So let's get a few more in, and then I'm going to rotate my paper. I'm going to put a few. Now I'm using my black new pastel because it's a darker black. It's a blacker black than my pastel pen, my charcoal pencil. Now, if you wanted to use a pastel pencil, you could, but it's going to be much more time consuming for you to fill in all your hairs with the pastel pencil. Although you could, but I think it's an alternate way to do things, but I prefer to use new pastel. I'll tell you guys something too that Linda brought to my attention, is that Dakota Art Supply has got a set of 120 half sticks of Rembrandt pastels on sale with free shipping this week. So go to their website and check that out. Okay, now I'm going to turn my paper over so that my hand goes in the direction of the fur a little easier. So don't, if you need to turn your paper, turn your paper. So back to my $2.99. Right on the edge. Very, very, very light pressure. See, this works much more easily for me to have turned my paper. As you can see, I hold my pastel a little different, but it enables me to be able to turn it and swing it in different directions. And I'm not putting a hair everywhere. I'm leaving spaces in between. Now let's put some black in. So I go back to my new pastel black, 229. I'm going to add some black. Look at that fur, it's just coming alive. Oh, one other thing, I think somebody asked me and I forgot to write it down, was what kind of sharpener I used. This is a Mobius and Rupert handheld sharpener. It's got a small hole and a big hole. So I can sharpen the new pastels with the big hole and pencils with the small hole. Okay, so I just made a mess, so I'm gonna blow that off. Reinforce that eyebrow. Back to the 299. It's gotten dull. And sharpen it up a little bit. If I get a stroke I don't like this one, I can take my graphite pencil and go over it and pretty much get rid of it. And then I can go back and fix it. And it's really important to watch the direction of the hair underneath the eye. Put a few white hairs over that. And we need a few more dark black hairs down here. So he looks pretty good from this angle. So let's turn him around and see what we got. Before I do that, let me put a few more white hairs over here. Okay. So I think that looks pretty good. So I can add details with my white pencil. I can add a few stray hairs if I want. I think what I'm gonna do now, right here where the hairs come together, they go in all different directions. Go up the nose, across the nose, and then they go down the side of the face. So we want to be careful that we get these in the right direction. And this is a $2.99. The hairs curve over the cheek. Now, when they come out of the eye, we want to take our black charcoal pencil and pull little fine lines down here so that it makes our eye look more like the rest of the fur. And we want to draw little black hairs in this area. I'm going to take my black new pastel, make them a little darker. And if any of you who are watching missed the first part of this, it's on Facebook, so you can go back and catch up. Got some black hairs that come down. And then they change to white. We can add the ones on the side of the face. I can use my charcoal pencil to make a few wild hairs. And I can use the black one the same way. Now, it gets right brown down here and I don't have enough color. So I'm going to go back to my Rembrandts. This is the 411.3 burnt sienna. I'm going to add some more color. And then the 538.3, the Mars Violet. Add darker color under. It's actually going to be underneath this section. I'm going to add that real lightly. And I can darken that with 704.3 dark gray. Put a few black hairs here. Now, when I get down to the muzzle, I don't, there's a lot of hair here, and so I don't want, I want to decide where I want the viewer to look, okay? This needs to be a little bit lower in here. So I'm going to use my 299 light gray. Letting it get kind of dull. Switch to the white. Now I'm going to let it get really dull so that I can make the muzzle white, but I'm not going to draw in all these hairs. And use the flat end. So I'm just adding the white color. Then we'll go back and add some details to that. Use my black. New pastel. As the hairs change direction, and they begin to grow up the nose. And across the nose. putting a lot of detail here, just kind of. Then down at the bottom of the nose, it's very brown. So I'm going to take my 263 Indian Red, and squiggle in some brown color, rub it around with my finger. And that blends together really well. Now this is also white. So I'm going to add some bright white color right here where the light hits the top of the nose. I'm also going to use this to draw very carefully around the outside of this muzzle and give that some shape. Now that also, because it's brighter, it makes the nose come forward. That looks pretty cool. I'm really pleased with that. That's a little too bright, so I'm going to dumb that down some. So now I'm going to go back to my white, new pastel. And now it's pretty sharp. So now that I've sharpened it up, I'm going to make some brighter hairs over the white base that I put down, but I could go over it this way so they're not super, super bright. And just add a little more color. Put a few little white hairs right on the edge of the nose before it turns. In the corner. Then there are little black hairs that come over the top of the nose. So using my white charcoal pencil, add a few details, but not too many because I don't want it to over, we want the attention to be around the eyes. And I think too many times we can lose that by putting too many hairs in. So I want just enough. So now I'm using my white again. This white's going to be on the other side of the face, but we'll deal with that in a minute. Now let's mark where his little whiskers are going to be. Little brown there. And we're going to take our white and draw in these little hairs. Even up the nose. Okay, Holly asked, and I'm going to answer this question now, why I don't show my reference photo. The reason I don't show my reference photo is it's a copyrighted photo. If you took the photo and you want to show it, then you can, or if you have permission from the photographer. The next project I do online will be one that everybody's been asking for, which is the bottles, the glass paintings, and I took the reference photos and I will share those with you. But I can't share a photo that I didn't take without permission from the photographer. Now I'm going to go up and straighten the line of the mouth with my 353. Use my charcoal pencil to draw in a little want that, so I'm going to add some more white. Before I finish the mouth, I'm going to add a little more color with the 263 down here. Now to finish up that edge, before I put whiskers in, I'm going to take my 276, the buff, and draw in his mouth. And there's a little white edge here where it catches the light. Okay. Someone else asked too about fixative. I don't use it. I don't have any friends actually who use it. It can dull the colors of your picture, and I just personally don't use it. At least, you know, not on pastels, on velour. And if you're using sandpaper, maybe if you want to use workable fixative, but I personally don't know anybody who uses it, of any of the artists I've asked, and I don't use it. I don't find it necessary. The velour holds a lot of pastel, so I don't have to use it. Now I darkened this a little bit with the 411.3 so that I can add some lighter hairs in here, and I think I'm looking for a stick I haven't used yet, so I'll have to sharpen it. I keep my pastels sharpened very sharp all the time, so I can add more hair. With the edge. Then we're going to switch to the cream 276. Now I hope that you'll paint this project. If you do, or paint another wolf or one of your own projects, you'll send me a picture and show me how you do. This is the white. Now I want to do a couple of things and we'll move on to a different area. Let me show you some little tips that might help you. Oh, someone did ask me about highlights showing through. You can see all in this area. This is the white pastel pencil that I added yesterday when we started, or the white charcoal pencil. It shows through, and then I can put the bright white on top. Back to my 276. That's pretty good. Now, I need to shape this face better, particularly in here. Now I'm going to use my 9B charcoal pencil because I can take that and it adds a light gray tone without being too much. If I used a gray pastel, it wouldn't give me the same effect. I can use it to add a little bit of shading to this area. Can use it around the nose or any area that I want to see just a half shade darker. Now looking at this, the black hairs need to be a little stronger. So I am going to take my charcoal pencil and add a few dark hairs there. And take my white, these are just little details. I like the way that looks. I do think I need a little more black here. Darken the corner of the mouth a little bit. And using the edge of my 229 pastel, a little bit darker here. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to work down here a little bit more and we'll add in those whiskers and we'll do the other side. This is my 353. I can go in here and add shadows in between some of these hairs. Just reminds me of when I was young and used to color in coloring books. I love new pastels. They'll do just about anything on any surface. They're very useful. I hope you guys are really enjoying this, that it's not too boring for you. Now, we did this area at the top with the gray, so we need to add a few whites, just a few little. There. I'm going to use my 538 3. I'm going to make it darker here. I'm going to use my black 700.5 Rembrandt. So by darkening this, it brings the head forward too. Now we can add some of the lighter hairs. We'll save the final hairs after we put the background in, so that we can pull them into the background. But that looked a little too yellow to me, so I'm going to switch to 299. Now the hairs grow longer, so I can I'm going to press a little harder here, make these a little brighter. I can use the corner. $276. We used, yesterday we used 253 on our eye. I think I might use it in some of these dark areas to make a medium tone hair. Which adds a very nice warm color. Then I can also use my pencil. Now we can add our whiskers. Now this is where actually switching pencils from a 6B to a 2B might work better for you. That's the 2B, but it didn't make much of a mark. Let's try a 4B. Let's just make sure that that's better. I don't particularly like that one, so it got wiggly. I can go over it. And go back, kind of anchor them, a little shadow around the base where they okay, I think he looks pretty good. So let's finish this other side. Before I turn it over, I think it needs to be a little bit brighter here. So I'm just going to add a little color. Go back the other way so it's Yeah, I like the way he's looking. So let's switch him over and do the other side. Let's trim him about like this. So I'm going to sharpen up my pastels on my sanding block by holding them perpendicular to the block and getting the edges very flat. I actually have two of every highlight color, so I don't have to stop and sharpen them very often. So I'm going to take the $2.99. And lightly come up the forehead. Now this wolf has a dark stripe down his nose. Some wolves are more distinctively marked than others, and there are 4 types of wolf in North America. The wolves, for instance, that live in Yellowstone and are out west are much bigger, and their coloring is slightly different. There's also the red wolf, and in Mexico there is the Mexican wolf. They're smaller, but they're very pretty. I like to paint them. They're beautiful coats. This wolf lives in Indiana, in Wolf Park. I'm going to use the white. Now there are lots of places to get really great photos. Holly Youngblood Cannon has a free photo reference site for artists on Facebook. Look her up. Another good source is Pixabay, and then there's Paint My Photo. They have excellent photo reference. Going back in with the black. So making sure that the hair goes in the direction it grows. right out here at the edge. We'll use our black, go back and forth and merge these groups of hair together. Now this area looks a little too even to me, so I'm going to go back and add some hair with the 299 to kind of blend those together. This is the 263. The hair is pretty brown out there. We're going to finalize that after we put the background in. Well, let's put some single white hairs. Okay, Judy Johnson asked about velour boards. Hannah Mule makes velour boards, and that's a very good question. Okay, let me turn my wolf so I can get his eye. Velour boards are 4-ply. 4-ply is very thick, and early on in my career with this, I used them. I had to take them to a framer to cut them because I couldn't cut them myself. They also warped, and I ended up giving them all away because I couldn't work with them. They absorbed the moisture and they bowed up. So I would suggest not getting those. I got a little speck on here, so I'm gonna just flick it off. I would just get the velour paper. If you want to mount it, you can. You don't have to. I prefer it that way because it's more stable. And then if you're putting your work in shows, it's not going to bow up to humidity. Humidity hits it and the paper starts to ripple. I've heard that that happens with other pastel papers as well. So if they're on a board, they're less likely to do that. So let's get the hair underneath this eye. And of course, you know, this is just my experience, and I want to help you to avoid some of those pitfalls. Now, if you had a big giant picture you were doing and you needed a big stable surface, that would be ideal. But Ordinarily, I don't think you would. Now I'm going to make the hair, and push a little bit harder, make it a little bit brighter, right at the corner. I'm going to take my charcoal pencil, a 6B, and draw, pull out, look out a few little black lines from the rim. Just makes such a difference. And then the hair comes up over the cheek and is going to blend in with the hair on the side of the face when we do that. My white pencil just to put in a few. Okay, so let's turn him right side up and see how we're doing. Well, he's looking very handsome. So we got a lot further than I thought we would. So we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of background. I did want to tell you this: if you're doing this and it gets to be like, oh wow, there's too much hair, I can't tell the difference, it all looks the same, then here's what you can do. I'm going to show you on mine. And it's always good to get a fresh set of eyes on it too. I mean, if you just get away from your picture for a while and leave it and then come back, it's going to look a lot better to you and you're going to be able to see your mistakes. Now, I don't have enough emphasis right there. I'm going to put that in. And there's a black area that comes down here like this that helps shape the face. Sometimes when you're working upside down, you can see all your mistakes, and sometimes you can't see everything. Okay, back to what I was saying. So let's say this is too busy. So how can we fix that? We can go over it with one of our other colors. We can use black, Rembrandt, or we can use dark gray. I think I'm going to use black. And I've got a nice, well-worn piece. I keep a box of little pieces. So here's my well-worn piece of black. Now I'm just going to go over this lightly. Okay? And that kind of helped to blend everything together. I kind of like that. I'm going to go here. I'm going to leave the eyebrow. I'm going to turn it up on its end and make things brighter, or not brighter, but darker in here. So my white hairs are still going to show through. And so we're kind of, in effect, glazing. Now, the other thing I might add is Let me find a piece of white Rembrandt. If I decide that I want things to be a little brighter, I can do that with the softer pastel. So I can go like around the edge there. And I can add some color in here, some pastel. And I just personally keep tweaking things until they look like I want them to look. So I think that was a good idea to glaze over that area. Because what I want to show the most is he has very distinctive eyebrows. I'll go back over those with white. He looks very handsome. Okay, let's add a little background. And we're gonna add the background. This is a fall background. It's kind of got fall colors in it. So we're going to work on this side of the paper. I have to read this comment. Connie says that I scared her when I went over it with black. It was real light, Connie. Almost no pressure. So now we can add some background to our picture. So if you have a wolf packet, it'll tell you the colors. It'll show you how to do it step by step. And I'm going to tell you if you're taking notes. Also, just a little spot there keeps annoying me. Sometimes you have to go back over places because the pastel dust gets on it. And those of you who weren't here yesterday, we have one green eye and one amber eye. That's not a mistake. So we're going to take our base color, which was 707.7 Rembrandt, and I'm going to add the base coat. And I'm cross-hatching, going one direction, then the other direction, and never in circles. When you go in circles, it makes an edge. And I'm just pushing it across the paper. That way I can put lots of layer on this velour. Because I'm not pushing hard. I'm just literally pushing it across the paper and letting the velour paper take the color off. That's really what sold me with this paper. It's beautiful. It's soft. It produces a beautiful, soft image. I wanted to say something else too. I meant to say it when we were talking about questions about charcoal. When I first started painting on velour, I would do a complete charcoal drawing and then add color to it. And then as I learned later, I didn't do it that way. I just put my light charcoal drawing and then started adding the colors. So I'm just gonna go over to here. So the next color we're gonna add is the 411-3 Burnt Sienna, which is this warm brown. I'm real pleased. I think he looks real wolfy. Sometimes I just hold my breath and pray. When I have my classes, when I was talking to you about getting away from it and coming back the next day. My class will come back in the next day and go, did you color on my paper? Did the pastel fairy come last night? And I didn't color on their papers. I wouldn't do that. But what happens is that you get away from it and you get a fresh eye when you come back in the morning. The next color we're going to use is 411.5, which is burnt sienna as well. And so it's redder, like Georgia clay. Now, the 0.5 in a Rembrandt series means it's to true hue. So this is true burnt sienna. The 0.3 has some black added to it. So I'm going to put this on. We're just gonna really add the fall color. Now remember yesterday when I added the white pencil to the back of that and it didn't show up? Now it does. Now my board has a few nicks and scratches in it, but that's okay. We're going to add more color to it. This is the 411.3. I'm going to darken the edges. It keeps the eye of the viewer from going out of the frame. The free reference photos is Holly Youngblood Cannon. Free reference photos for artists on Facebook. She has some beautiful photos. So I'm going back over it again with the 411. Now, the next color is Gold Ochre. It's 231.5. I'm going to put it over in this area so that it glows back here behind the ear. And this will draw attention to our wolf. I don't want to go too low because I don't want it in the back of the wolf. Go over this a little bit more. See how pretty it all blends together? Kind of messed that up. My board dropped a little bit, so let's go with that. A little more red with the 411.5. Now to darken that corner even further, I would use the 7043. It keeps the eye from leaving, your viewer traveling out of your picture frame. Now we're going to finish this side of the wolf before we move on to this, or we're going to try to. So I have, looking for my base coat. Another question that nobody asked, but I'm going to answer it, is I always use, I do occasionally use beige paper, but hardly ever. I use light gray because it's neutral and it works for just about every application. That's a little bright, so. This is my 704. And then the Mars Violet, 538. Did I already say this is one of my favorite colors? Now, I don't know if you can see it on the screen or not, but there's some dents in my board. Velour paper dents very easily, so you have to be careful. This is where the microfiber cloth comes in so handy. We can go over it, rub over it like this. And a lot of times, it will take off unwanted pastel, but it will also smooth out and lift the nap. And you can cover up your dents. Now I'm going to add the last color, 704.3 gray, dark gray. Ah, he's looking spiffy. Now I can start adding the hair. I'm going to use this 276 buff. Where's my 253? This is 313 nut brown. Let's see how it looks. It's a little yellow. This is how I paint. I go find a color that works. I don't particularly like that one, so it's a little yellow. I'm going to go back to my 253. And then put the 276 in there too. So you have to think in terms of layering of hair. Now I can take my ivory pencil that I told you about yesterday. And use on here to add a few here as well. I like to paint the winter coat on a wolf. They have those double coats. When it gets warm, they shed. But in the winter, they're really spectacular. Okay, Holly wants to know how I decide on a background. Well, I like to use complementary or analogous backgrounds. This wolf was not photographed in the fall. I'd say he was just photographed in the dead of winter, so the background was pretty gray and not interesting. So I added fall colors to make a more interesting background. Also, for instance, on my YouTube channel, I did a painting of Nico, who is a black-faced wolf. And Nico has yellow eyes. His eyes glow, so I wanted to play that up. So in the case of Nico, I added a purpley blue background, and in that video I go into detail about the background, so you could look that one up on YouTube and it would tell you about that. There's a little place here I don't like. It's too bright. I messed with it a couple of times, so let's see if I can fix it. Okay, I'm going to turn it upside down and work on this area. Hi, Marianne. I'm so glad to see you. Marianne's one of my favorite painting people. I love to paint with Marianne. And this is the $2.99. Now, you see why we waited to add the background? I find it very therapeutic to add hair. Add a little black here. It needs to be a little darker. See, I can go right over that hair. Blend that with the I can see some boo-boos from up here too. Maria wants to know if you have permission to do, as she says, as we want with this painting. Is there a copyright? Well, yeah, there is a copyright. I designed it, so I own the copyright to the painting. But it's also a packet, so you have permission to paint it and sell it if you wish. But I would appreciate if you gave credit to the design to me. I don't mind if you sell them. Okay, I'm going to turn him back around. Does that answer your question, Maria? Cover up my paper with glassine. It's like, this is my interpretation of a copyrighted photograph. So we'll continue to work on the back side of this painting. Now I want to take my charcoal pencil and pull up a few black hairs into the background. Now, I see a couple of things I want to fix. Move this out of the way. And then I want to put white hairs there. Then with your white pencil, you can draw wild and crazy hairs into your background. Then just continue to add hairs. Put my black in a little holder, and that'll help me. It was getting a little short. You can get these holders at Jerry's. They're made by Intus. I would recommend, this is a number 8, I would recommend a 10. Well, we're about out of time for today. Thank you, Judy. I'm glad you love the nose. Add some black down here to make it really dark. Does anybody have any more questions? If you do, just let me know. If I don't see them on the screen, because it's hard to see the screen in paint, I'll answer them next time. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed painting as much as I have. And on Friday, we'll finish the background, and then I'll answer questions. I'll answer questions that come in. We'll finish painting the background and go over what we look for to decide if we're done or not. I am very happy with him so far. He's got a little speck on his nose. We'll blow that off. If you blow them off rather than rub them in with your finger, you have a very good chance of getting rid of the little boo-boo. I learned the hard way, don't rub it in with your finger first. When I dropped a red pastel on the middle of a finished painting. So I will see you all on Friday, same time. And tell your friends so we can all get together and paint, because painting is good therapy. And it's just my favorite thing, and I like sharing it with you guys. So I will see you same time, same place on Friday. And, oops, I see another question here. How do you decide to use black charcoal pencil or black nude pastel? I tell you, the black nude pastel is blacker than the charcoal pencil. So I want to use, most cases, I want to use the blackest thing. Now underneath the eyes, I want a softer black. When I want to put these little lines in, I want a softer black. And so the pencil does that much better than the black nude pastel would do. So I can change the shape here when I see that it's wrong. I will see you all on Friday. Bye-bye.